All right, and you see immediately one of the potential drawbacks of Phyrexian Tower. It is a legendary land, and so having two copies of that in your opening hand, one of them becomes a city of traders, I guess, rather than an ancient tomb.
Well, look, this is a hand that if you're in Kavanagh's seat, you can't be that unhappy about. You have your Priest of Forgotten Gods that she just found off the top, and it's one of the most important cards in this matchup.
Yeah, against any kind of creature strategy, unless they're going as wide as you are, Priest is going to do a lot of good work. And even if they are making a bunch of tokens flooding the board, it's just such a good engine piece, even if it's ramping you towards sometimes a hardcast Godfarer's Gift, or just that Gate to the Afterlife activation.
And McKee having Stomp for that Priest of Forgotten Gods has just got to be a sigh of relief if you're on McKee's side of the battlefield. You check it, you develop a second Llanowar Elf, and you just find yourself so far ahead now.
Yeah, Caroline put McKee to the test to see if he had the removal spell. Turns out he did, so that test is passed. We get to play the game as McKee intends. And so now this is a big turn. If he has a good follow-up here, he can really put Kavanagh under some pressure. Starting off the turn with a Pelt Collector. And now just a hard-cast Love Struck Beast. Don't need to take some time off a hard side when you already have at least 2 1/1s to play.
Right, and there's also another Llanowar Elves in hand, a Love Struck Beast in hand. That's just not the squeeze that McKee finds himself under. Right now, McKee realizes this is a combo deck. He needs to get his opponent dead.
And there you see what isn't the namesake card of the deck, because we're calling it Mono Black Gift, but in actual fact, this is a Gate to the Afterlife deck. That's how you get the gift in play. And this is an engine card where even if you can't land a Godfarer's Gift, having Gate to the Afterlife in a sacrifice strategy is often just as good. And so we do see that there for Kavanagh. But McKee really tightening the screws here. A second Love Struck Beast, making Pelt Collector even larger, and now that Pelt Collector and the first Love Struck Beast are crunching in to combat.
And this is when the actual text on Gate to the Afterlife is going to come up a little bit. Getting these loots, this life is going to help Kavanagh sort of bridge the gap to this combo that she's trying to set up for.
But she's going to have to do it real quick, because she is under a lot of pressure right now.
Oof, yeah, and it just with missing these land drops, needing to catch up on so many different axes, it feels like this game might just be out of reach for Kavanagh already.
Yeah, and this is what, the third turn, the fourth turn? And so there's just a Priest of Forgotten Gods, not the turn that Caroline needed right here. And I'm not sure if McKee needs to follow up with this battlefield, but he might be able to present one anyway.
Yeah, this feels like a spot where McKee can almost just play creatures, or excuse me, not even play creatures, just enter combat and pass. But with a Scavenging Ooze, there's even a Scavenging Ooze in his hand.
Right, just one of the best threats in the format anyway, just as a creature, and also just happens to be one of the best hate cards against a deck like Mono Black Godfarer's Gift.
Pack them in. Normally that card's not that great against the deck because Godfarer's Gift itself doesn't target. But it's so hard to imagine Kavanagh hitting that threshold of 6 creatures with this much mana on McKee's side of the battlefield to feed the ooze.
Yeah, the ooze can often be too little too late. Right now, I think anything would be too little too late for Kavanagh, who we are seeing hovering over that concede button. We're moving to a game 2. And looking at the sideboard here for Kavanagh, we see Grasp of Darkness as a removal spell that lines up pretty well against basically everything except Ronus and Love Struck Beast. But then not much else that's really applicable in this matchup. We see some ley lines for these graveyard-based decks, Thoughtseize maybe for something like Sultai or some of these aggro combo style decks, but not that much that lines up well against someone who's just playing creatures and trying to attack you.
Yeah, the other thing that I would be looking at here is just Rankle, Master of Pranks. Just being able to, say, trade your goat token off of a Woe Strider for any piece of cardboard that McKee develops to the battlefield is going to be huge. Something that I want to draw attention to in Kavanagh's main deck is 4 copies of Ravenous Chupacabra. That is a card that is colossal if you can reach that point of the game. And you can add even more to that when if you look at McKee's deck, there are no copies of Questing Beast. This is a collected company deck that's just trying to kind of play to the battlefield and just go wide rather than sink its points into evasion.
are there any good upgrades for McKee based on what we saw? He has Rampaging Ferocdon, which is a great card against all of these go wide, Phyrexian Tower, Priest of the Forgotten Gods strategies. We've got Underworld Fires, which is a card I had to remind myself what it did quickly. A good way of containing a wide battlefield and also exiling as well to get around Godfather's Gift. So I also have a Braid, which can tag the turn 2 priest, also can tag the turn 3 Gate to the Afterlife. So it seems like McKee does have quite a few good options there.
Yeah, I don't hate the card. Underworld Fires here is something that is able to just hit that Stitcher Supplier like you named. I think for the most part, you don't want to get too interactive. Otherwise, you just make your collected company so much worse. But look at the opening hand for McKee here. 2 copies of a Braid. That is perfect for trying to check the namesake out of Kavanagh's deck and could really punish her if she leans too hard into that side of it.
Yeah, it turns out a Braid doesn't make your collected companies too much worse if you just draw them and take them out of the mix there. So McKee will be very glad to have those. As we know, though, just trading 1-for-1 doesn't do much if you're not applying pressure. So McKee is going to need to back those Braids up with some large creature, which he has plenty of in his deck, certainly. So we'll see if that develops. And a fine start here for Kavanagh too. Stitcher Supply into Crypt Breaker. No third zombie for the full fast start, but still off to the races here for Kavanagh too.
Just give it a second. Just give it a second. This never happens.
All right, we are elves versus zombies dual decks at the moment.
See, look, there it is. Third zombie. Had it the whole time.
I don't know what I was thinking. How could I ever have doubted that?
Never met a Crypt Breaker that didn't draw a card.
And if you have time to be drawing cards with Crypt Breaker, it is one of the best and cheapest engine pieces in the entire format. Grawl Aggro typically not a deck that gives you that much time though, so we'll see if McKee can put his foot on the gas pedal here with a good follow up. And his collected company, so that may well qualify. Oh, and look at that, Scavenging Ooze and Robber the Rich. So that Robber gets a crunch in this turn alongside the Pelt Collector, and Scavenging Ooze is going to be a good follow up. But Grasp of Darkness is there for Kavanagh to contain the Scavenging Ooze.
And the question there was how Kavanagh wanted to actually divvy that Grasp of Darkness versus this Ravenous Chupacabra and how much that actually mattered. And going ahead and using the Grasp on the Ooze just let her reevaluate based on her draw step what she wanted to target with the Chupacabra.
And we're drawing another card there. Chupacabra will come down, take care of that Pelt Collector. Or possibly the Robber of the Rich, but I think guaranteeing you take down the biggest thing on the battlefield is a bigger priority, and Caroline comes to that conclusion too.
Right. When Kavanagh saw McKee miss a land drop last turn, you aren't too worried about McKee having fewer cards in hand than you.
All right, here we go. A second collector company for McKee.
Got to round up a posse somehow, you know?
There seems to be a pregnant pause on this one, but maybe that's just deciding which of your great options you want to go with. 2 copies of Cruel Spellbreaker. That is just a ticket here.
Love to trample.
And Kavanagh would love... Ooh,
so
okay.
Cruel Spellbreaker turns off Priest of Forgotten Gods during McKee's turn.
Yeah, so no instant speed shenanigans going on there. But those Spellbreakers are the biggest thing on the battlefield right now. So McKee will have good attacks here. Gets to follow up with 2 copies of a Braid to really slice away at Kavanagh's board.
And this is just paving the way for McKee to get Kavanagh dead before she actually gets this Godpharaoh's Gift onto the battlefield. This is huge.
And that stomp there is a great draw from McKee. It's another copy of a Braid, effectively, in this spot, which also happens to be, yet again, the biggest thing on the battlefield when he gets to cast it. We are in Escaping Roast Rider territory. So that could potentially trade with the Spellbreaker. But that is Kavanagh's entire turn.
Oof. Well, at this point, it's better than the no castable spells that she has right now.
Okay, Grasp of Darkness is a good castable spell.
Yeah, Grasp is actually great in this spot, largely because it can go ahead and check one of those Spellbreakers.
So 1 Spellbreaker bites the dust. We do need to find an answer to the second one. Lazartep Reaver, not quite it. And now Kavanagh has such a wide battlefield. She can activate Crypt Breaker, but It's getting to the point where I don't even know if she can afford to.
Uh-oh. That's another creature that looks like it's trying to stomp.
At this point, I'm going to give up saying that it's the biggest thing on the battlefield. That is the whole point of this draw deck. You know, you play the biggest creature, and then you play the biggest creature, and you just repeat until the opponent packs it in.
It just feels so strange to call it the biggest creature every time, right? Because there's a level where you kind of have to go, well, that's just what the deck does, right?
And look at this, a quintuple block on the Gruul Spellbreaker. Trying to trade off with that.
I don't think this is going to work out.
No, and this is playing around one removal spell, you know, the first stomp or the first abrade. Turns out the second one's going to get you.
Good grief.
So there's a braid, and for Kavanagh, once you see this abrade being fired off, you kind of know what this has to mean, right?
Yeah, you could just sequence your blockers in a different way.
And a lot of something happening here. So again, Kavanagh now in the spot of, I can draw a card, but that 1 point of life could be all the difference there.
And Kavanagh recognizing, though, that the 1 point of life doesn't matter if you don't have anything else to cast.
Right, she's between a rock and a hard place here. Sigil Supplier will die, more fuel for escape, more fuel potentially for a top deck Gate to the Afterlife, which does not roll off the top for Kavanagh, sadly. We do have the Godfather's Gift in hand, not the combo piece that you want here. We're a fair ways off casting that.
All right, Woe Strider able to block Gruul Spellbreaker cleanly.
Oh, but Ronus the Indomitable can threaten to help that Spellbreaker punch through opposing blockers, and also Scavenging Ooze can get to work now.
Ooh, and now McKee is faced with the decision, do you want a Scavenging Ooze? Do you want a Bone Crusher Giant? How are you actually planning on winning this game?
The Scavenging Ooze, effectively by itself, may well be the answer here.
Well, love a Castle Locktoin on top when you have a 7-drop in hand and 6 lands on the battlefield.
And as you mentioned, Emma, Godfather's Gift does not target. So if there are that many creatures in Kavanagh's graveyard, she'll still get to return something, even if maybe it's not the best possible option. We see a quick scan of Kavanagh's graveyard there.
All right, first creature, Woe Strider, makes sense. That's the one that's a spell on its own.
And now we go after the Priest. That also makes sense. Something that can come back and also contain what McKee's doing. And behind the third door, we have just one of the Sigil Suppliers trying to clean that one up. But here it is.
This is Ravenous Chupacabra? No. Wait.
For his sake, I sure hope not.
There
it is.
A Ravenous Chupacabra in graveyard. That checks the Scavenging Ooze.
And that is a good boy there for Caroline Kavanagh.
The goodest boy out there.
Well, okay, there's a replacement Scavenging Ooze, but again, Kavanagh's graveyard is so full that I don't think that Scavenging Ooze can stop her from getting something.
I think it's close, right? Because it can eat 3 more things and outsize Chupacabra.
It can. It's still going to be a very menacing card to fight through. But Kavanagh still gets to play Magic here. You know, she has Woe Strider in hand, whatever she draws off the top. So this Godfather's Gift is just putting the screws to McKee almost incidentally.
Yeah, Kavanagh is not out of this game by any means.
And there you see it, two Crypt Breakers left, now 1 Crypt Breaker left, but McKee is tapped out. And so we get that Crypt Breaker brag, or if we mill something good with the Sigil Supplier.
Ooh, this could be huge. We could see McKee getting punished for that Sorcery Speed Ooze. Ooh, how do you feel about Rankle?
I like it. We can also play a Woe Strider, or even escape a Woe Strider, sacrifice a Sigil Supplier, and keep digging, seeing if we can go even better here.
Ooh, I like it, I like it!
And there is Woe Strider escaping from the graveyard. And I think we're about to see Rankle escaping too. In a manner of speaking. And this sacrifice mode on Rankle, in theory it's symmetrical, in practice it is certainly not symmetrical. And in this spot, it's just gobbling up one of those Llanowar elves, but Kavanagh's perfectly fine with that. That places a severe mana constraint on McKee.
Yeah, there's certainly a level here where it feels like Kavanagh is just trying to reduce the number of resources on the battlefield, because if both players have nothing, the player with the more powerful cards in their deck generally comes out on top. So when Kavanagh has this God Pharaoh's Gift in play as well, that just, oh god, it's so hard to imagine out top decking this mono black gift deck.
And at this point, even if McKee were to draw an Abrade or a Reclamation Sage for the God Pharaoh's Gift, I think the damage may be done. I think Kavanagh's in range of stabilizing this game.
Yeah, this is a spot where we're starting to see Kavanagh's side of the battlefield outsize McKee's.
And this isn't so much like a mono red aggro deck or one of these decks we've seen in the past that has a lot of reach, where if the board is clogged up, you can win through it anyway. So Kavanagh, even at 3 life, that may be a relatively safe life level. I don't think she wants to go to 2 to open the door to another Bonecrusher Giant, but I don't think she's too worried about her position right now.
Oh wow, what can a Fiend Artisan do? Anything, right? I'm feeling anything.
It can get real big, real fast. In my experience.
It can also just sacrifice a goat to find something like Ravenous Chupacabra.
And now Kavanagh preparing to make a big attack.
Sometimes you just gotta get aggressive.
Just Fiend Artisan attacking would qualify as a big attack, but Rankle gets to rumble in too. And I will gladly trade my Go token for your Llanowar Elf.
Is there a world where you sacrifice the Fiend Artisan token just so you have an extra blocker? Okay, no.
I could say
two mad scientists. Caroline and Kavanagh really just leaning in to doing the smart things.
Yeah, it turns out having 3 4 toughness creatures is enough to put the shields up. And yeah, we see after a game that it looked like was McKee to lose, Kavanagh managed to stabilize after a judgment call gone wrong for McKee, and we're heading back to a game 3 between these 2 players. So it looks like Caroline's sideboarding is locked in, and we see McKee instantly resubmitting too. Anything stand out to you? Maybe play versus draw considerations for game 3?
So here, I actually think this is the kind of matchup where not very much is going to be changing between the play and the draw in most instances. I imagine if Kavanagh's looking at anything, it's that copy of Plaguemare. Last round, we saw just how many X1s that McKee brought to the battlefield, and having something that can just say mop up a Llanowar Elves and then block a Robber of the Rich is a perfectly acceptable 3-drop. Right, you're not necessarily excited about it, but it's almost like a removal spell that also powers up your God Pharaoh's Gifts, your Gate to the Afterlives, and so on.
And if you want to join these 2 players here in our events, maybe make your way onto the big screen yourself, you can do that by playing in our challenge events to qualify for these tournaments. You see there, 2 p.m. happy hour, 50% off the $20 entry fee for each of our challenges after that point. And you can find all the details for those events, for this event, and for the seasonal championship that this all is building towards at scgtouronline.starcitygames.com. And Caroline, maybe reconsidering just going through the motions, making sure that her post-board configuration is how she wants it to be here.
And this is something that a lot of stronger players tend to do, is basically just reevaluate what you feel like you already know, right? You don't want to have any sacred cows. You want to make sure you're actually thinking about things rather than just playing on autopilot. McKee's deck, Gruul Aggro, there is not a static agreed upon build for that yet. There are collected company versions, there are questing beast versions, and this feels like a spot where Kavanagh might just be kind of dotting your T's, crossing her I's, however you want to phrase it, to make sure that you aren't just looking at your sideboard guide, smashing submit. You actually want to make sure you're doing everything with purpose.
Yeah, and look, this isn't a speed run. You don't get extra credit for submitting your deck as fast as possible. It is definitely worth just taking some time just to recheck all of your assumptions, maybe take a look at your opponent's deck list again in an open deck list event like this, just to make sure you're not missing a trick that could take you by surprise in game 3. And we see a classic Gruul opening hand here. A handful of red spells and 2 basic forests for Rod McKee. Kavanagh's hand, not much better. We do have Phyrexian Tower, we do have the Priest, but no fuel for either one of them at this point.
Really like the pop-out swamps in Kavanagh's hand.
And Kavanagh will send that one back for a hand that does look much better. That Fiend Understand not doing too much just yet, but we might have some time. And we do get to put back a second copy of Phyrexian Tower, that legendary land.
Really just the ultimate legend rule here.
It always feels so good under the London Mulligan where you have a blank piece of cardboard that you get to put back. You feel very smart for you're building your deck that way.
Oh yeah, I've played a lot of Dredge and putting a Creeping Chill on the bottom.
And Grasp of Darkness there, immediately dealing with that Scavenging Ooze for Rod McKee, who finds a 4th basic forest to go along with this hand of Primal Might and 2 Bonecrusher Giants.
Look, you put cards in your deck to draw them. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, we just want to draw some other ones of them in this spot right here. And Caroline gets you untap with an uncontested Godfather's Gift. Or Gate to the Afterlife, sorry. Soon to be Godfather's Gift, if all breaks right. And following up with Fiend Understand and Piece of Forgotten Gods. Which we do have a red source now. We can deal with our choice of those with Bonecrusher Giant. But look at this. You know, Rod McKee only has 1 red source, not using his mana efficiently. He can't, cast the Stomp and the Bonecrusher Giant in the same turn, or he can't use both Bonecrusher Giants to clear Kavanagh's board.
Ooh, last Tep Reaver coming out. This means Fiend Artisan gets to start accruing some real value here.
Yeah, there's the first last Tep Reaver. And we could play the second, but it looks like we're going into the deck with Fiend Artisan.
X equals 1. Gotta imagine this is a Stitcher supplier.
Absolutely, and we're removing the army token, meaning that second Lazarus Reaver, instead of amassing the existing army, is going to amass a wholly new one. So another token there, some nice sequencing from Kavanagh. But it turns out we might not need to use that 2 mana on Lazarus Reaver. If we hit the right cards off the Stitcher supplier, we're getting Godfather's Gift this turn.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Kavanagh's play is. She's just basically trying to give herself the best out to maximize the draws that completely punish McKee for having this really non-functioning hand.
And look at this, that Fiend Understand already up to 6/6, now 7/7. So even if that, oh, here we go, there's Godfather's Gift. So even if that gets removed, that Fiend Understand is actually, literally, the biggest thing on the battlefield, and Rod McKee just packs it in. He knows he has no way to come back from that. And that's the kind of draw which would overpower the Gruul aggro deck, even if it had the right mana